there will be no trouble. By the special grace of God, our candidate, distinguished Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Jangaba, Kobakabani, Jagaba. And for those who don't understand Hausa language, go forward, Jagabang. I know Nigerians want to move forward, so they will follow the man who some traditional rulers of note saw in them the future when they gave him that title. And of course, those who have fled to Yoruba knows to go Asiwa Jew is in the front, lead from the front. So I'm sure he will win. But let me say one thing. There is not any one country in Africa and anywhere in the world that Nigerians can migrate to, because the total population of Africa is such that Nigeria already represents about 25% of the entire African population. And Nigeria is much more in population than the sum total of West Africa. So it will not be correct to think that we can go to Benin and take it over, go to Ghana and take it over. We have to be here. Going elsewhere is not an option. Nigeria is ours, as you rightly said, I must fix it. It is being fixed, and it will be fixed. It is work in progress. The national conversation, as it relates to the next election, has focused on two things. Many people speak about youth and the energy of the youth. There's no question. The youth has huge energy as individuals and as a collective. Many have shown an uncommon level of clarity in terms of what the issues are and the kind of country we will want to have. Even many more have deep convictions about what we can do individually and collectively. But there is something which is often missing when we discuss the role of our youth. Which manner of youth? Which kind of Nigeria do they want? Of course, it's easy to say we want a great country. A country can be great and yet inelegant. Great in what? What is the character and the structure of that greatness? I'm going to try to avoid looking for trouble, because I'm always in trouble, by speaking in general terms. The world we live in today, there are great nations with huge GDP, and they boast easily of a collection of more numbers of billionaires. And yet, in those countries, hundreds of thousands are absolutely homeless. They sleep in front of public buildings, even as they do so side by side with those billionaires. So I think we want a great country that cares for the elderly. A great country that cares for women. A great country that provides for the disabled. If you like, we want a great egalitarian society. And that is why, when we talk about the All Progressive Congress, the word progressive is meant to speak to the distinction between our party and what it stands for, and the non-progressive individuals and parties that stand for the status quo. Our young people need to interrogate, and thanks to Google, you can find out the difference, the meaning of progressive. So we are committed not just to a great country, but a country that will have the extremes of very few people being comfortable and more people sleeping and remaining homeless. And that is why you must speak to, in choosing and discussing the question of the next leadership of our country, we must interrogate what values do they stand for? What values do they stand for? Number two, we mustn't just speak about age. We must also speak about character. As I'm sure you know, we have young people, including some that His Excellency Governor Bagudu Atiku referred to earlier, who have made huge progress in spite of all the challenges in this environment, taking advantage of some of the policies that President Buhari had put in place to break through and make a statement that in practical terms, we can spend the whole day analyzing and speaking to all the imperfections in our country. But in spite of all those problems, if you put all of those problems together, our country, Nigeria, I insist, is still far much more than the sum total of those problems. And that is why right now there are young people who are making it in different fields, even as there are many who are also stranded and are looking for opportunity. It is easy because people ask the question, what are we going to campaign with? And I'm happy that Governor Bagudu spoke to at length on this. And I think that should be the starting point for the youth. Because you are here both as potential beneficiaries of the right policies that, by the special grace of God, if elected, as I believe he will be elected, other President Tinubu, what would be need for you? But also, you as the ambassadors of the party, to go out there and speak to the Nigeria people, Nigeria young people in particular, about what our candidate will do differently compared to some other candidates. But when they ask you, what are we going to campaign with? Let me just speak to one or two, three things, and then I'll move on. You know, Nigeria is like a country. I mean, most Nigerians, many of us, I'm a member and a supporter of Bende Insurance. It's the best team in the world. And I'm sure you will soon know why. I'm not Man U, I am not Arsenal, I'm not Liverpool, whatever. I'm just a supporter of Bende Insurance, Football Club of Nigeria. But when we are watching football matches, you will often find that it is only the coach who didn't know which player to withdraw and which player to feed, particularly if they lose the match. We who are watching, we know the game better. Now, it's easy to catalog the problems we face, and in the process, we may just forget some of those areas in which progress has been made. And I think it is important, as Sardana of Sokoto was reported to have said, that it is normal for people to say, don't beat your chest, don't blow your own trumpet. And he said, we are living in a world in which people are increasingly so selfish that they will be too busy beating their own trumpet that they will never remember to beat yours. So it makes sense on occasion like this to blow your own trumpet if other people refuse to do so. Like Governor Atiku said, I was a governor under Jonathan. Between 2008, December to November 2016. Not many now will remember how about 4 weeks to the general elections in 2015, the people were ready and anxious to vote, but the then President and Commander-in-Chief persuaded the National Council of States and the National Economic Council, of which I was a member, to postpone the national election because, according to him, and it was a fact, about 28 local governments were inaccessible on account of serious security challenges. And there were problems beyond those 28 local governments that the security agencies under the president have advised him that it will be impracticable to conduct election in 2015 on a date that was earlier scheduled by the National Electoral Commission, and the election were postponed. For those of our brothers in Borno and that part of the country, you will agree that Boko Haram is still there. But you can't question if the Nigerian Armed Forces and security agencies under the command of President Muhammad Buhari has made huge progress in reducing the capacity of Boko Haram to hang flag in those local governments, such that we had to cede those local governments to a foreign authority. I also can confirm that when Governor Kashim was governor of Borno State, that was the time APC was formed. The Nigerian president was afraid to go to Borno State. We, as governors in non-PDP states, went to Borno, had a major conference there, and decided to go to the market just to make a statement that it was wrong for the then PDP government to isolate that part of the country as if we have surrendered it to Boko Haram insurgents. I was one of those governors that went to the market in Maiduguri and challenged the then government to provide leadership and demonstrate to Nigerians that we are not about to surrender any state out of the 36 states of the Federation. Again, not many people will remember that now. Number two, for those in the Southeast, I do remember every December, it is customary for our brothers from that part of the country to want to go and celebrate Christmas and New Year in their villages or cities of birth. And some spent 2-3 nights around Asaba, unable to cross River Niger. The PDP government did up to 3 groundbreaking ceremonies announcing their decision to rebuild the second Niger Bridge. Like I had cause to say then in 2015, I said they have done so many groundbreaking ceremonies that even the old bridge is already shaking on account of the number of breaking ceremonies that series of PDP presidents have had to do. At that time, the Minister of Finance and the coordinating Minister of the Economy is from that part of the country. She participated in those groundbreaking ceremonies. I can list here, but I want to avoid trouble, the number of PDP people who speaks today who were part of those groundbreaking ceremonies, but they never dropped a bag of cement. today under the leadership of President Muhammadu Buhari, the second Niger bridge is no longer about breaking ceremony. We are told, and I believe you have seen it, we have seen the pictures. This president, God willing, President Buhari, will commission the second Niger bridge. I use the word commission. So what they failed to do for the Southeast, President Buhari is doing, and we finish it before he leaves office. So if they ask you from that part, mention this to them. Also, I want you, as young people who are internet warriors, to play back the statement made under PDP by Fanda Mbaka when he drew attention to the fact that between Onitsha and Enugu is supposed to be a dual carriageway. But people were now farming on the road, what used to be a dual carriageway. Today, under Buhari's government, that dual carriageway has been fixed. I'm sure the Minister of Works is better able to speak to this aspect of infrastructure that President Buhari has made a huge statement. I don't know how many of you ever entered the train, except people like of my age who boarded train from Kaduna Junction, KDJ, to Lagos in the late 60s. But people of your generation never knew that people traveled to Lagos by rail. Before, the Nigeria Railway Corporation was easily one of the most important federal government agency or corporation. But until the recent unfortunate incident, I know senior advocates of Nigeria, I know captains of industry, I know young people, I know the employed and the unemployed that choose to travel by rail from Kaduna to Abuja and from Abuja to Kaduna. As we speak, a lot of our people from the South and elsewhere takes train from Itakpe all the way to part of Edo State. And they make a stopover at Agenebode, a border town between Edo and Kogi State. I think you should not be ashamed to clap for it, because we tend to clap when things are not done. And speaking to things that you can connect with, and then ask the question, before Buhari, was that a possibility? Governor Bagudu spoke very eloquently about a president that said to governors, I don't know how you sleep when you have not paid your workers. Because the economy must work for the benefit of people. But he came into government and found that many states were not able to pay their workers. He didn't just lament it, as Governor Bagudu rightly reminded us. He provided bailout, regardless of party divide. Not once, not twice, not thrice, more than that. To provide federal grant, even in the face of federal government's own limited resources, to ensure that states are able to meet one of their most basic responsibilities to workers of the states. Because when state government default in the payment of salaries, and for states that are dependent or referred to as civil service states, it is obvious that the people of those states tend to be negatively affected, because with the civil servant not being paid salaries, he cannot pay his rent. And those who rely on rent collection won't be able to, won't have any source of income. Of course, those who sell tomatoes in the market, rice or beans, they can't sell those basic food items if the civil servants in those states have not been paid. President Buhari insisted not only lamenting it, but provided support to state governments to meet that basic obligation. If some states fail to do so, it is in spite of President Buhari's effort, because these are facts no one can dispute. So if they ask you, what are you going to campaign with? Tell them that in those states where governors went into election owed 2 years' salaries, under Buhari, many of them were able to take advantage of those special grants to offset those salary arrears. But I think it's also fundamental, like I said earlier, to ask a question: what kind of great country do we want to be? Interrogating the character of that greatness. But President Buhari came in and said, we can't refer to Nigeria as the giant of Africa and lament the poverty of many people in our midst and go back to bed and sleep. And he created this social intervention fund that seeks to identify the poorest among us and have some cash transferred to them from time to time. This may not have solved the problem, but it does indicate the heart of a caring president, a father that worries about the poverty of his children, and not just lamenting it, but taking practical steps to deal with it. On the issue of basic education, we had a president that says, if this is the setting we have to provide to ensure that the children of the poor go to school, that government at federal level will provide a matching grant to ensure that children of the poor who attend public primary schools are fed at least once a day. And for truly poor people, feeding your child once a day might appear to be not a big deal, but it is a big deal for many. If the parents can't feed, but President Buhari provided at least one meal for the children of the poor. If it wasn't properly administered in your area, hold the governors responsible. Because part of the campaign complaint we had in APC was that this money was being given even to PDP governors, and they had the responsibility to ensure how it is implemented. Because sometimes it hurts when we are not even able to readily remind people of some of these things that have been accomplished under this president. Under this president, government after government before this president talks about how we have abandoned agriculture. But President Buhari didn't just came in to lament this abandonment of agriculture. As he often said when we have meetings with him, when I was a governor and later as chairman, he will remind us that you don't expect a poor farmer in a typical rural Nigeria to walk into a commercial bank and access credit in double-digit interest rate in order to be able to attract support for farming. And between the president and the CBN governor, they had to work out some schemes that I'm sure Bagudu is better placed to speak to ensure that the farmer can access credit that ordinarily the commercial banks would be able to provide. As a consequence, our president was able to look at Nigeria on the face and say to us, stop importing foreign rice and start eating Nigerian-made rice. Before him, it was common to find warehouses of expired rice imported from different parts of the world into Nigeria. Today, I eat only Nigerian-made rice, and I'm sure many of you only eat rice produced in Nigeria by Nigerians. And he taught us to try to learn to eat what we produce and produce what we eat. and provide the necessary financial wherewithal to support those who are ready to take up the challenge. So if they ask you, what are you going to campaign with, then President Buhari make a difference to many rural farmers across the 36 states of the Federation. But remember, when we speak in this manner, that is not to say that every Nigerian farmer may have attracted this money. But as they say, a journey of 1 million miles starts with one step. And with consistent step, one after the other, you will get to your destination. So if they ask you, what are you going to campaign with, remember to speak to these issues. Of course, we can't dismiss the fact that in spite of all these efforts, there are still huge challenges. And I believe in framing the Nigerian Constitution, those wise men and women recognizes that no one president will fix Nigeria problem once and for all. First, because we live in a dynamic world. The challenges of yesterday will be different from the challenges of tomorrow. And so there is a provision for periodic election and a replacement of leaders, even if they perform as angels. And so now we are here. The city president is not eligible to the contest, but our party is eligible to participate and elect a candidate that we can market to Nigerians. One of the critical issues in Nigeria today, when you review newspapers and watch television, is that not a few talks about growing lack of confidence, people resorting to more ethnic issues, and ethnic champions have taken over the political space, and even religious bigots in some cases. Now, the issue of who can better unite Nigeria is therefore an issue. The All Progressive Congress governors ordered the leadership of Governor Atiku Abubakar, listening to all the cries of different commentators, and in spite of the fact that this is not in the Nigeria Constitution, but as a party that is truly progressive and listens, his colleagues from the northern part of this country resolved not in enforcing any known provision in our Constitution, but in listening to the cries of people, whether rightly or wrongly, decided in their own free will that the next president should come from the southern part of Nigeria as their contribution to ensuring that the unity of this country is preserved. So it is not enough to say we are committed. What are you doing differently to ensure that you service those sentiments in some part of the country? APC governors is on record as having done that. Now, why? When you listen to some of the commentators and analysts and columnists and broadcasters, TV hosts and hostesses, people talk about who will restructure Nigeria, even though that word is so nebulous that not many bother to interrogate it and insist that those who speak about restructuring speak to the content and the character of that restructuring. But if you do not obey the provisions of your own constitution and you do not listen to the cries and comments by people, and even the provision in your own party constitution, you insist on violating your own voluntarily agreed rules, And then when it suits you, you talk about commitment to restructure Nigeria. You should tell the people that those who are not ready to submit themselves to the structures as provided in their own party rules can't be entrusted with that project. APC has shown that it is committed to those ideals, and our leaders have made huge statements in that direction. People are going to talk about security. I watched a candidate a few days ago, not for the first time. And they asked him, what are you going to do about security, insecurity? And he said, yes, you know, without security, you cannot have a growing economy. You cannot attract foreign investors, and even local investors will take a flight. He said all of those things that any man of 80 or woman of 80 years old can readily speak to. However, what he didn't say is how will you fix it? The area of education and even savings that he left behind. Now, I think for those of you who are social media warriors, there are issues here that you need to speak to. Go to Google and look at the first 6 months of Governor Obiano's administration in Anambra State. What you will find in YouTube is a Governor Obiano using bulldozers to demolish houses of kidnappers and those who were involved in what they then refer to as Bakassi boys or even Bakassi girls. Who was the governor where Bakassi developed in Anambra? And who solved the problem? So if a man couldn't fix a security challenge in his own state, which require courage, how can he convince you that he will fix security challenge all over Nigeria? Don't take it from me. Go to YouTube and find out the first 9 months of Governor Obiano, and then ask yourself, who was his predecessor? As I said, I don't want to look for trouble. I'm a smallish man. Anybody can deal with me. Then ask Gogo, who was Obiano's predecessor? If he tell you, Peter. And so, if he has solved the security problem, will Obiano be demolishing, using bulldozer to demolish people's houses? For houses of kidnappers, Bakassi boys and Bakassi girls, bandits? So when they say, I will fix Nigeria, did you fix your state? The second issue is people celebrate. I was a governor, Bagudu is a governor. The mandate of a state governor is clear. Generate both local resources and take advantage of our oil wealth and get your allocation from Abuja and use it to deal with critical issues affecting your state. We are in a federation. So the kind of problem that a governor in Edo State faces may be slightly different from the problem a governor in Kebbi faces, or a governor in Imo, or a governor in Anambra. Now, look at the tenure of this person as governor, who says he saved 60-something billion naira. Ask 2-3 questions. In whose bank was that money saved? Who owns the bank? What is his background? Was he a banker or not? Isn't it a common complaint in Nigeria that some governors prefer to save money meant to deal with social issues and economic issues? Some public servants put money in banks, in fixed deposit to collect the interest, while the public purpose for which those money ought to have been deployed is neglected. So you had 60-something billion, but you couldn't deal with security. You couldn't when my friend was governor. I then answered the question as to whether really he saved this money because he had solved the problems of the state. Because if you don't ask these questions, people get away with quarter truth, not even half truth. There are two kinds of politicians in Nigeria today. And here I will rely only on the statement often credited to Governor Wike. Governor Wike says, should we be rewarding migrant politicians? They are PDP in the former election. They will be APC in the next election. And they will become ABGA in another election. Really? Why are we forming different parties if not to differentiate one from the other? Even as Nigerians, we speak to the fact that politicians migrate every day. We have politicians who are not known to have migrated. It's about character. It's about conviction. Our party is not supposed to be represented by a body of ideas. So when it suits you, you are ABGA. And then you want a national platform, you go to PDP. And you will run as a vice to a professional presidential candidate. Right? And then Nigerians massively disobey you. Because I hear obedient. All right. Obedient to who? And I say, but this is not a new product. This product was disobeyed just 4 years ago. It was disobeyed because they carry an umbrella that is responsible for the gross mismanagement of Nigerian resources for 16 consecutive years. And you were running with someone who tells us he was a custom officer. I don't know what customs do. You know what customs do. With someone who said, even as I was working as a public servant in the civil service, I was running businesses contrary to law and contrary to the general order of the public service. Now, what connects a custom officer with a trader? Because I see people again go to YouTube and they say, I am just a trader. That is what they said, and that is who they are. So you can see the logic of the union between a trader and a customs man. Will somebody say amen? I don't think this is difficult for youths with clearer eyes. You don't need glasses to understand what had united them. Now, if that ticket was disobeyed, what has changed? What has changed? The only thing that has changed is that once people lose election, they migrate to another party. I want to conclude by just saying I am not here really to do campaign because the INEC says we are not allowed to start campaign yet. We can only begin to test the microphone, and even if we do so, we do so quietly. But let me say this. If we are going to create jobs, and Nigeria do need to create jobs right now for millions of our youths, those jobs cannot be created by importers. Those jobs will be created by manufacturers. Who are the main traders and importers in Nigeria? who are the main importers of wines from South Africa. Before being governor and after being governor, what are you doing for a living? You are importing. That is what you do. You are a trader. If your competence is in trading and importation of products to trade here, can you really be trusted with the huge challenge of moving Nigeria away from a country that consumes imported products to a country that produces and manufactures products in Nigeria? The skill to buy and sell are totally different from the skills you need to run a production process. And without the manufacturing sector, you can't create those jobs. I'm not going to mention names, but find out who is a trader, if really they are traders, what do they import, where did they import from, and find out who is responsible, in part, for our continual dependence on imported products for all sorts of things, including toothpicks sometimes. At the heart of the Nigeria challenge is the issue of power. I believe APC candidate in the person of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, having taken those bold steps he took in Lagos, he will find the courage to deal with the issue of power supply in Nigeria. You have seen someone who was virtually crying or pretending to be crying, who said he admitted that they spent $16 billion on power as PDP vice president with his boss as president. And after spending $16 billion, Nigeria is more in the dark than it was before they spent those monies. So you will ask them, one sector, $60 billion. Today, the entire federal government budget, is it up to $60 billion? So I guess you will need to, because I found that the public conversation, memories can be so short. But as young people who are social media warriors, go to Google, you will be able to, on YouTube, you can dig out some of these facts and just ask the question. Even if Nigeria hasn't become, and clearly there are problems, are you going to hand over the country to those who brought us to where we are? To those who handed power over to families? As governor of Edo State, I protested, together with governor of Delta, Uduaghan, that the way in which the then PDP government handed over in the name of privatization, public asset in the power sector, that it will wreck the economies of several states. We did that, we put it on record, it was recorded, we objected to it, we denounced it, and today, many years later, those discos have collected far more money than they invested. Who privatized PDP in that, privatized power in such manner? Which party? Who was the chairman of National Council on Privatization? Who privatized Nitel? Who did that? So when they say they are going to privatize NNPC, you must ask yourself, is that the way, exactly the same way that they privatize, quote, the Nigeria Postal Services, Nitel? For me, when they ask why are we going to vote for Bola Ahmed Tinubu, I will just say a few things. As Bagudu said, he came into Lagos as a governor in 1999. You have to be very strong to work through some part of Lagos. I was a union leader at that time, and I know that our easiest source of recruiting people to block Lagos was just to go under the bridge. and we'll find area boys there and area girls. Those area boys were transformed from being area boys to area workers. Who did that? Who did that? Because I want to be fair. I spent some time speaking about one state and another state. Now we must also speak to the situation as it was also in Lagos State. Area boys were converted to area workers. And those underground bridges where abandoned vehicles were kept, they are now gardens. Who laid foundation for that? However, those who can't dispute what has changed in Lagos. I watched a program and they were saying, are you suggesting that the changes that have occurred in Lagos, remarkable changes that have occurred in Lagos and are going on right now in Lagos, are you saying that it's only Jagaban that was governor for only 8 years that is responsible for it? My answer is yes. You cannot build a 20-story building without a solid foundation. The building will collapse. It also speaks to, for you young people, about leadership recruitment process. Those who criticize, as what you say, he has head on to Lagos politics. He determines who become what in Lagos. He's not the only one. Every governor tried to determine who will succeed him, whether we admit it or not. And if any of you become a governor, you put your heart in anything you believe in, whether Bible or Quran, and say, I will not be interested on who succeed me. American presidents are always interested on who succeed them. British prime ministers are interested on who succeed them. Because they say success without a successor is a failure. And so, who has clearly worked out a mentorship program and adopted a leadership recruitment program that has made it possible for Lagos to produce competent, brilliant young men and women that succeeded as Waju and are in Lagos as we speak. The Vice President, Governor Atiku reminds us of a very brilliant Vice President Nigeria is blessed with right now, who identified him in 2000, between 1999 and 2007. Who did? How old was he then? Talking about young people. We have a man who can see tomorrow that he will recruit not people older than him, younger people who he has seen in them, some capacity, groom them, encourage them so that they can even become not just a vice president, but a seasoned pastor. So if you're looking for those who can mentor young people, you can't go outside Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Lastly, of all the qualities, talking about character, that Nigerian leaders need is the courage to take difficult, painful solutions in the short run, but decisions that will pay off in the medium to long term. As president of the NLC, I organized strikes, not once, not twice, against the then governor of Lagos State, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, insisting that he pays a minimum wage of 7,500. And he showed me effortlessly how the total local revenue of Lagos was only 600 million. And asked me how between the 600 million and 2-something billion that he received from Abuja, how he could pay a minimum wage that's of the same level as federal government. And I said, my business is not to help him to answer that question. My business is simply to demand what we consider to be the irreducible minimum wages that no Nigerian should earn, and that the cost of living in Lagos was simply higher than other part of the country. But I said, what you told me then, give me time. And I said, we can't give you time because when you say the long run, we will solve this. There's a well-known British economist, Keynes, who said in the long run, we are all dead. So today we have to live to be able to see tomorrow. Today, from that 600 million, Lagos is reportedly generating up to 50 billion naira monthly. How did they achieve that? So what we are celebrating in Abuja as single treasury account that was never discussed that Buhari has reinvented at the federal level was developed as far back as 1999. By who? So when they seized the allocation accrued to Lagos local governments, Asiwaju had developed alternative source of supporting this. And so we need leaders who would lament about what is not perfect. We need leaders who have courage to identify what needs to be done and get it done and move the country forward. I believe, therefore, Oshiomhole believes if as a governor you have in your cabinet Christians and Muslims, you have people from different states of the Federation, from each of the 6 geopolitical zones, you don't need to be lectured about how to transform our diversity to source of strength. Asiwaju has demonstrated that as governor, he will do it even better as president. Thank you, young people, for this opportunity, and together we will face the challenge of the future under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, by the special grace of God, who will be sworn in after being elected in February from May 29, 2023. Thank you very much.